Okay, so we have completed our mean, median, and mode portion of this assignment, 3.7. So our spreadsheet currently has mean, median, mode, and it has range and standard deviation. To clean this up, I know I showed how to do mode two different ways. I'm going to go ahead and delete this column. I'll just do this whole column. So if I highlight column G, right click, delete, and now I have some more space. So I've done this work right here. If I want to move these so they're closer together, I can highlight these cells, drag them up so everything is together, and now I'm ready to move on to the next portion of the assignment, which asks me to, after I've done these, I skipped the minimum and maximum. I showed you how to filter those instead to make our range easier to do. So we just have mean, median, mode, range, and standard deviation. So I've modified this slightly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on creating bins and what's called a frequency table and a histogram. It's pretty straightforward and not too bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to create class intervals for a histogram for every 0.25 feet from our data. So this is their example. They started at 4.75 and then they went 0.25 up and they went to 5 plus 0.25 to 5.25 and so on. That's for their data. For our data, yours will be different. My example will be different and we'll move on from there. So if I look at this, my first value starts at 5.33. So for my interval, what I'm going to do, and just to make sure we're matching how they format, we'll type bins and we'll start typing our numbers. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet here and I'll type bins, and my bins will start at the lowest quarter foot interval that will include my data. So I'm going to say 5.25 because if I go down from 5.33 to the nearest quarter foot, it's 5.25. And I'll go up past 6.29, so my next one will be 6.5. So I'll go from 5.25 to 5.5, 5.75, 6.0, 6.25, 6.5. And that includes all of my data. It will fall within this range. So now what we need to do to create a frequency table and a histogram out of this information is we're going to use that data analysis tool pack that we just added on. So if I click on data analysis, it takes a little bit to load that tool pack up, but we can then look through and find histogram. So if I scroll through, histogram is right there. So that's nice and easy for us. It should be one of the first ones on your list. So histogram and hit OK. Now when I do histogram, I want my input range to be what data am I looking at? What am I finding the histogram of? Well, that's all of my heights. So for my input range, I'm going to click here and select all of my heights. My bin range, I have to make sure I click. I just created my bins, so my bin range is going to be what I just created right here. And then the next thing I want to do is I can do two things. I can click on my output range, and when I do that, it goes away for a second and then it comes back, and it doesn't automatically select this. So I need to make sure I click into this box and I just tell it, where am I outputting my information? I'm going to output it right next to my bins. So I'll just click this cell right here, and that's where my information, from when this does its job, it'll output it right here. And I could make a separate graph if I wanted to, but instead of doing that, I'm just going to click chart output, and it will make my frequency chart and my graph that look like the previous one there. Or if I scroll through, it'll look like this graph, this frequency table, and this graph. So if I click chart output, it'll include the graph. That's a long story short. I apologize for being wordy. So we'll hit OK now. We have everything selected, and it will output our frequency table here, and it outputs our histogram. If you want to click on your chart and drag it and move it, resize it if you want to, you can do all of that. If you want to rename histogram to be class heights, you can do something like that. Okay, and here's what this means. It means that from 5 feet, or from 5.25 and lower, I have 0 heights, which is true. From 5.5 and lower, I have 4 heights: 5.5, 5.46, 5.33, 5.33. From 5.75 and lower, I have 7 heights. So under 5.75, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so on. So that's what this chart means. And then this graph is graphing this chart. And so I've created a frequency table right here, and I've created a histogram chart right here. All right, I'm going to move this chart back down a little bit, because the last thing we're going to do that the assignment wants us to do is to create a descriptive statistics chart. So we'll go back to our data analysis tool and we'll calculate descriptive statistics. And it's very easy to do. So we'll go back to our assignment and we'll click in here and we'll go back to our data analysis tab, our tool pack, and we'll look for descriptive statistics. Once again, it's right in the first thing we see. So it's about the 6th one down, descriptive statistics, and we'll hit OK. Descriptive statistics. Our input range, again, is all of our data, our height data. So we make sure that this has a cursor flashing, or we click in it just to be safe. And we highlight all of our height. Then we go to our output range. And again, it does the same thing. We want to make sure, otherwise it would create a whole new worksheet. We don't want that. So click on output range. Make sure we click back into this box here so we have a cursor flashing. And we'll say our output range should go right here. And what we are looking for, let's just double check. It wants us to make sure we are doing summary statistics. So let's check the summary statistics box right here. And then we will hit OK. And when we do that, it creates a chart. I can move my graph down a little bit if I want, or over, so that it's all included. And my chart is a little hard to read, so if I want to resize it, I could hover between row or columns I and J, or I can double click and it will do that for me. And there is my descriptive statistics. If you want, you could change column 1 again to be class heights. And there is all of our statistical analysis using Excel. The purpose of this assignment was to show you that there are multiple ways to display statistics in Excel. We can use mean, median, and mode as our own functions, or we could use the descriptive statistics. But if you do that, you can see that there are some extra calculations that we don't necessarily use. However, we could compare. So our mean, 5.73. If we want that to be the same, we could just go back and decrease our decimal. And now they all would match to 2 decimal places. 5.73, median, 5.69. Mode, it only shows one mode, where ours can show multiple modes. Standard deviation, again, if this one is too big, we can decrease that, and it matches. And it also has sample variance, these other numbers we haven't talked about. It has our range, which matches again, our minimum and maximum, which we did by sorting. And that's where we're at. So that's how you complete assignment 3.7 for the purposes of our class. Now you can move on to do the next portion of our assignment that you'll find on Google Classroom.